important, and so with the car. So if one day I would be a rich man, I would never buy a car before having driven it and having talked to her and having tasted her. Okay, more than that.
Stirling's looking at you thinking you haven't got a clue, mate.
He's Italian after all.
Yeah. Do you look at historic cars now and think, oh, I don't know why he bothers with that, it was rubbish in the day?
Yeah. It amazes me that people will go out and spend these fortunes on cars which were a heap of crap, really. I mean, I can understand somebody saying, well, I want to buy that car because it really was a nice car. I mean, the 1100 Fiat was a jolly nice car, but it wasn't a collector's item or anything. But, I mean, it was a nice car. A Lancia Prius, things like that, are nice cars. I can understand people going out and buying a Morris Maxi or one of those sort of things, you know, for whatever reason, I think you have to be a bit crazy.
It is, like Nick was saying, it's subjective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There'll be plenty of people out there who like Austin Maxes.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. There'll be an Austin Maxi owners club. Is there an Austin Maxi owners club? Alistair Clements, editor of Classic and Sports Car, is nodding. There is, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite popular.
I think it's probably,
garage out.
it's probably important to point out.
And if they hear this, they'll write.
Stirling may be the world's greatest racing driver, but he's hopeless as a classic car salesman.
Did you actually ever want to get hold of cars that you raced many years later? Would you like to?
To an extent, but I must say I always reckon that the later the car is, the better it is as a car. Although there are certain vehicles like Oscars and so on, which I think you can get better with one's memory and the age and so on. I mean, the car I would rather have than anything else in the world is a 300 SLR Mercedes, because I really do believe that was the finest sports car ever built, and it's great to drive, and it's typical Mercedes, you know, reliable and everything else. And that's if I had the money, that's the sort of car that I'd like to have.
The car that you did 1,000 miles in on public roads in about 10 hours.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a minute. 1,000 miles at an average speed of nearly 100 miles an hour on public roads in 1955.
Public Italian roads.
Yeah. Well, you guys kept off the roads. You wanted to see the race going on, I'm sure, because really the trucks were still going and things like that. But basically the roads hadn't got many vehicles on them, except, of course, the first car went at 9 o'clock at night at half-minute intervals up till midnight. Then they went at 1 minute intervals, and I went at 7:22 in the morning, and that wasn't the last car. So you were 600 and some entries. Now those 600 and some entries, I mean, they're mostly Italian. We go fast to tape, you know, Italian hairdressers, I reckon. And obviously they weren't driven that fast. But, you know, it was just a race. You know, but a very exciting and exhilarating race.
You've told me this story many times, I still struggle with maths.
Yeah,
1,000 miles an hour in 10 hours.
Yeah, I must say I'm quite surprised.
Walls of people lining the roads. And
Yeah, but they weren't ours. So if you clip one, it wasn't so bad.
I'm digressing. Racing cars, should they be raced hard or should they be put in a museum? It's a debate, isn't it, that rages, and there are both schools of thought, aren't there? Don't go quiet on me.
Yes. But I think the answer is that we need all the variations of collector, because there aren't enough independent museums or even factory museums to keep all the cars that we ought to keep for future generations to be able to have a look at. What we need is a mix. We need Douglas, we're talking about the different sorts of collectors. We need all those different sorts. We need some to look after some cars as really pieces of art and pieces of history, and then we need some people to run them and demonstrate them, because people love to see racing cars, and that's the big thing, is to hear them and see them. And then we need some people to just run the cars, restore them, and not modify them. You know, I mean, this weekend is a fantastic weekend, but there's an element of silhouette fall here, and if and when in 100 years someone takes Adrian Newey's car to pieces, they're going to be very surprised by whatever's inside it. I mean,
Are they?
well, okay. I don't mean to give Adrian a hard time. If they take some of my cars apart, there will be things in them that were definitely not
sandwich.
Yeah, cheese sandwich. Possibly things made in more exotic metals than the originals, or indeed things like shell bearings rather than white metal bearings for conrods and so on. That's how you run the cars, but it's a bit of a problem if you want to keep history intact.
I fully agree. I have to say I fully agree. But from the other end, if you let the car sit in a garage, the car will get old. You know, the saddest thing is to see beautiful cars with deflated tires, a little bit rusted stuff. This is really sad. But I really agree. I've been coming here, and I had the privilege to come here since a long time. And the lap time, I've been doing the TT race for many years. And now the TT lap time, to be competitive, is maybe 4 seconds quicker than how it was first time I came, with same cars, same racetrack, same tires, all the drivers, same drivers. So in a way, the cars will become more and more exotic. In theory, ideally, it would be good to just use them for a demo, because I think what Lord March is doing to give the privilege to all of us to see this old history still being alive, with the old actors still being there. It's an unbelievable, how to say, you cannot pay with MasterCard. You know, it's just unbelievable. But if it goes on and on and on from a mathematical point of view, you continue the trend, you would probably have, I don't know, carbon fiber pistons in a 1955 race car, which we don't really want to see.
No, exactly. I think the Americans have got it right. If you're cheating, you put an S after it. You know, your number, which says that you're not standard, you're sporty or whatever it is, and you say what the car is, and that's okay. And obviously, you're put in the right class, or if there isn't a class for you to make it special. I think they've got it right, frankly. I mean, over here, people cheat like hell. I mean, they really do. It's extraordinary. I mean, of course you know that as well as I do.
Do you guys think, you've been here a long time, that the importance of a win here is getting more and more? I don't want to say that in the early days it was like the Coubertin, it's important to take part, everybody wanted to win. But I have the feeling that all the car owners, for them to win the TT every year is more and more important.
You were like a bear with a sore head until you won it. you were desperate to win it. I saw you pacing up and down, and then finally
yeah,
you won it in
I was trying to corrupt all the other drivers and the mechanics to not to put special. No, but I really, I'm a competitive person, but I really respect the cars. And if a car owner wants to give me the car and wants it to be driven at 100%, I just can't do. I really tell them I will go 95%, and I just can't do any more. And I feel that this 95% it's not enough anymore, because people want to win almost at all cost. Because also economically, I understand is if a car wins a TT, I mean, the old cars have got a value because of the old history, but also they have a value about the history of being an historic car, and so it also brings money in the pocket of the car owners if you do well.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That may be true, but I would have thought it's much more about
Right.
Goodwood sort of becoming so far over towards racing. I'm not sure that a TT win would increase the value particularly, because in a way, because you know that it's running a lot of pretty special stuff really to make it do that. And I think if you were looking at the market, generally people are really more interested in a car that's a Le Mans winner, let's say.
I've got to be quite careful here as one of the Goodwood Revival organisers, but I think it's very important.
His Lordship's not here this year.
No, it's not that. The revival means much more to me than Charles does, quite honestly. And this is one of the most satisfying things, these Goodwood events that we dreamed up originally in '92 and then ran for the first time in '93. The most satisfying thing in my sort of modest motorsporting history that I've ever been involved in. But the thing to us is that what we tried to do here is to run an historic motor race meeting, not for the participants. We don't run this race meeting for those who are driving the cars and entering the cars. We try to look after you all and give you a great experience and a great weekend. But what we run this meeting for is for the spectators. And it's absolutely orientated towards giving the spectators a lovely experience that we hope they will take home with them and they will cherish and enjoy for the rest of their lives.
But it wouldn't happen without them.
No, exactly. And the fact that some cars qualify for racing here and they do appear here, I think if certainly with our auction company, if we offer a racing car that is eligible for one of the main events here, then it does have a cachet and it does add something to the perceived value of that particular car, rather than one that is not eligible. But the same thing would apply if it was a car that was eligible for the Le Mans Historics or for Monaco
Yeah,
Historics.
absolutely. I don't think it's the win that puts it to value.
No,
It's the opportunity to take part in the Million Year or Goodwood. What I absolutely understand what Doug says, but if you don't mind, I would like to repeat what you once said to me.
Oh my God.
When I was wittering
I didn't touch the lady.
I was wittering on about the cars getting quicker and quicker and all the rest of it. And Doug looked at me and he said, Nick, you have to remember, this is a circus and you're the monkeys.
Very good, very good. I tell you what, actually one of the things with Emanuele here, I'll spare his blushes, but Emanuele, he was saying that he takes care of the cars. That's absolutely true. And he to us is a treasure, because he's one of the drivers that we can recommend to owners and say, look, Emanuele will give you a chance for great results and he will look after your car. And that's absolute gold dust. And there are a number of great drivers that have been involved with our events over the years who we feel we can trust implicitly. And that's something, and the support of drivers like this gentleman is something that we can't buy.
Can I say a little story?
10 shillings, please.
I'm flattered. I'm really flattered. But one time in the old Audi touring car days with the A4, we were really winning a lot, but there was a lot of rivalry between us, and we had a sequential gear shifting gearbox. And of course, when you want to brake as late as possible, you want also to brake with the engine. And we kept doing a lot of over revving. And over rev means change an engine, but we had the feeling Audi was a rich company. We had everything we needed, so, change an engine, who cares? This was the general attitude, some people more, some people less. And our boss kept telling, please don't do it, but it didn't work. One day he had the idea to take all the drivers to the engine department, and then, because we thought, okay, one engine we built is 30,000 Deutschmark, Audi is so rich, who cares? Then we went there and we saw the faces of all the people that with their biggest passion and love and competence, they rebuild engines with the best tolerances, with the best to make you go as fast as possible. We saw the faces and we were told how long time it takes to really make a good engine. And this really changed a lot. To me, it was really meaningful, because an engine is not a piece of metal. It's a lot of work, a lot of commitment from people that you might not even know. And this, if one day I would be a team boss, I would really take my drivers to see how much love it's put after a car preparation, and then you will respect the car more.
But I mean, Audi's a classic example, along with BMW and Mercedes, of pushing the tradition and the history. With those three manufacturers, they're really good, aren't they, at bringing out old cars that are beautifully restored from the museum, and they get some of the original engineers and some of their ancient drivers to come out. They're very good, aren't they?
We've had wonderful support here for, over the years from Mercedes-Benz, from Audi, from Porsche, from BMW. There's a pattern emerging, I'm afraid. Jaguar, they've been very supportive.
Yeah, the pattern's sort of gone, hasn't it? There?
Yeah. It's funny that. And then we get to the wartime history of this place, and that sort of that explains that retrieves the balance.
Let's not go there. Originality versus restoration. Does it matter if they're all much faster than they used to be in period? Does it matter if the fans love it and we have a good race?
It doesn't. I mean, I'm not critical of it. I'm just saying let's look at how it works. And
that's one part of it.
Yeah,
that's one part of it. But I would get out of my pram and spit the dummy if we had nothing but very highly developed versions of the old designs available to run here. The fact that we can give an entry to so many cars which essentially have kept faith in amongst the special ones. And we do run cars quite often of which there has been no surviving real example. There are only replica cars there. But we feel that's perfectly valid because we'd rather that our crowd actually see a Lancia D50 Formula One car running from the mid-50s when there's no active surviving example. And this is a replica car built around original engines. A lot of race organisers wouldn't accept that because it's not real. But we think that we feel that's daft because that's denying your enthusiast audience of a lovely sight and much more significantly a lovely sound. And there are other cars where, for instance, there was a Lotus 25 that was run for many years here, a Jim Clark car, supposedly, complete replica. But the guy who built it and who ran it was one of the Team Lotus mechanics. So you could argue that the car was a fake, but the guy was absolutely genuine. and that was fine for us, because what a terrific effort. What a terrific effort. And so in essence, the acceptance of an entry for that car was reward for his enthusiasm and his effort and his dedication and all those years actually of enormous sacrifice that the workers in racing actually put in to make racing possible. You know, those guys that that drove the truck, that built the cars, that adored it when somebody like Stirling or Emanuele, would drive their cars to succeed. And that's the reward, that's the foundation level. And actually for some collectors, that kind of sentiment plays a major part in their reason to collect. Because within motor racing history, one of the great interesting things about motor racing is that while the cars are interesting and fascinating, in many cases the people are even more interesting and even more fascinating, because you've got a full spectrum there from, complete superstar, really good bloke, and over there we've got the greatest living Briton, the greatest living Englishman, I think.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Excellent.
What other Englishman within his sport has achieved the stature that Stirling achieved in his? And there isn't one. Not still living.
So these cars we see racing this weekend, the Lotus 18, the 300 SL Mercedes, the Ferrari 250 GTO, you drove these cars when they were new and they were very standard. Do you look at them now and think, they've been breathed on too much? Would you prefer that they were really original and slightly better?
I would prefer that they were original, frankly. But it's not going to happen. It's amazing how nice people, will cheat like hell. And that's the way it goes. So when trying to cover it up, it happens. And I'm not going to say it's you or you, but it happens. And I think it would be very nice if we could get the cars as they were originally, because it's far more rewarding to drive the car with the same similar tyres and so on and so forth, and see how your time stacks up with when they were raced seriously, when they were raced but driven by professionals, not amateurs. Because now most of the people here are amateurs, which is great. But I mean, obviously you go back to when these cars were new, they were driven by professionals then, so there's obviously quite a big gap there. And I think one has to accept that one's not quite as quick as one was.
Doug Stirling is obviously the ultimate purist, and was there at the time and has been there and done it. This event attracts a crowd that's part purist and part lifestyle, brand, sort of sexy day out type thing. And they keep coming back. Do you think they mind? I mean, the purists obviously can't get all hot under the collar because they keep coming back.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? If you judge reaction by what you see on some of the specialised internet forums, then some of them get very cranky over the tiniest little error that we make, like a label over a car in the paddock. We'll use up so many unburned electrons on the internet. It's absolutely amazing, with people saying, why didn't they know that? All that sort of stuff. And nobody thinks, well, hang on, that was done at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 days before the event occurred. Give us a break. The other kind of people that come here for the lifestyle and for the atmosphere and for the general experience, they're absolutely as important. And it doesn't matter if the XYZ special has got different wheels or different tyres on it, or it's got its boot lid propped open as an aerofoil and they never were inferior. Just doesn't matter to them, and that's fine. And to those to whom it does matter, we say, well, fine, but just think of the other, what we do is try and balance everything. It's all a matter of balance.
But just one thing on the concept of originality, because sometimes they come up with a picture and they want to make the car look exactly as it was in the picture, but a race car is a living thing, it's like a flower. Even during the race, for instance, in Le Mans 24 Hours, the first win we had with the Audi R8 in the 2000, during the race we changed the rear box, the gearbox, which is the whole rear end of the car. We changed the front and the rear bodywork. So during the race itself, the car starts with one configuration and it ends with another. Beginning of the week, you go with the race car, you go the first day of qualifying, and then everything but the chassis and the engine is brand new. Wiring, looming, steering wheel, every single thing. So which one is the Le Mans winning car?
Yeah,
so you've got to be a little bit flexible in these things.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's have some questions from you knowledgeable and fevered up folk out there.
Yeah, I'll ask my husband this one. When he says about the car being original, do you want to be out there on the grid where everybody else's car is spikier than yours in an original car?
No, absolutely. Winner from Lady Moss.
Because I really don't know. All I know with historic racing is I want to get in the car and race it. Hopefully the car is as nice to drive as it was originally, or probably even better, and therefore I'm fairly easy going on that.
And Emanuele's point is very valid. You didn't have that sort of plug and play concept where you could change everything. You started the weekend with the same car, and if you crashed it, it couldn't be rebuilt.
Yeah, but a car is never the same from the morning to night, because you've got to do certain modifications. They may not be big ones, they may be. I mean, really, a car's life, which is maybe 1 year or 2 years, depending how long you keep it, but the car is certainly going to be different all the time, continually, with slight modifications to tyre pressures, and then you try different width or something, and obviously you get the best you can. It's a compromise, but you get the best compromise that you can.
So tomorrow at our auction across the road, we're offering the 1935 Alfa Romeo 8C35, which was driven by Dick Seaman and Hans Reusch to win the 1936 Donington Grand Prix. And that car was then owned post-war by a chap called Dennis Poor. It ran here in the very first Goodwood race meeting in 1948. And he kept on racing it around Britain and particularly here at Goodwood until 1955. And it was then shut away in a barn at the end of its career, the end of its useful life. And my friend and colleague Robert Brooks and I dug it out of that barn in 1987, and the car was sitting there in exactly the configuration in which it finished its very last race. And in the Chevrolet Transporter that was parked beside it, that had brought it home from this race meeting here in September in 1955, in the glove box, we found the fuel receipt for a garage in Midhurst when they fueled it up on the way home. And that's what I would describe as originality. It doesn't really relate to any race, particularly, or any part of any race, but it does definitely relate to that particular day when it ended its frontline career and then was consigned to becoming an historic artifact. And it's at that point, really, that it changes over from being a current racing usable piece of kit into being something that, if it had been kept after 1987 in that order, you would look at it today and the contemplative enthusiasts would just go into raptures over it, because in every crack in the paintwork and every dent on that car, there was part of that individual artifact's story. And if you look at the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, you know, the paint's a bit cracked and the frame looks a bit ropey, and the racers would say, oh, blow it over, repaint, fit a new frame, you know, it'll be good as new in the morning. That's not the point, not the point. But that car was in original condition then, but it was original to the day that it was retired. It's subsequently been restored as a modern day historic racer. And it's still a lovely thing, it's got a wonderful history, but it's bright and shiny, and to some extent it looks as if it was made last Tuesday. How's that for a sales pitch? Very good. I'm fired, I know.
A question from the floor. Charles Bradley, editor of Autosport.
Thanks for the debate, guys. Very fascinating. If I might change the subject slightly, this morning when Sir Stirling opened the race control, Lord March was talking about a second event at Goodwood next year. What does the panel think about the prospect of that? Will it be aimed any differently, do you think? Maybe perhaps more for the competitors rather than the fans? What's the feeling towards this, exciting news?
I claim the Fifth Amendment.
Is that a cop-out?
Yeah. He wants a news story for Thursday, so give him a proper answer.
He didn't tell us what he was doing, though, did he?
Not really.
We didn't get a definitive, I'm going to do this or that. We just know there's another date that's going to be important, and we don't yet know, so I don't know, what it's going to actually entail.
Basic theme would be to make it the 72nd British Automobile Racing Club meeting here.
That's what my badge is all about.
When they gave me this 72 badge this morning, I was outraged, because I might be old, but I'm not that damn old.
But it's a Goodwood Road Racing Club members meeting, strictly that. Do we know?
Ish.
Can you be slightly more helpful than that?
No, I can't.
Okay. Another question. Any more questions? Sorry. Alistair Clements, editor of Classic Sports Car.
This is probably to Nick more than anyone else, which is, what car do you most regret selling? If you could have one car back and put it back in your collection, what would it be?
Without doubt, an 8C Alpha, which I had for 2 or 3 years, didn't use enough, and thought I could live without it. And no, definitely, it still
Big
makes me feel
mistake.
quite queasy.
Is it still around? Do you know
Oh
where
yeah,
it is?
no, I sold it to a delightful man who actually went to, I think, is it